welcome to my channel. I'm Jason White and this is Jason's Weird Reads, and today I want to talk about books that I am excited for that are going to be released in 2023. I found 6 horror books that I'm really interested in reading. You know, the one thing that that kind of annoys me, but it's a completely understandable thing, but it still annoys me, is looking too far into the year and where or when these books are going to be released. They sometimes don't have covers or very much information about them, so I only chose 6 here because all the information is there and the covers are there. The only thing I forgot to grab were the release dates, but you can check them all out on Goodreads and they all have the release dates there. So let's get into the list right away. First book up is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I've been slowly getting into Grady Hendrix. It's been like one book a year that I've read of his, and I loved both of them. I think the one I read last year, you know what, I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure the We Sold Our Souls book, I think that made my top 10 list of last year. And you'll have to stay tuned to see if the Southern Vampire Book Club will make this year's top 10, but I'm pretty certain it will. So his next book coming out in I believe it's January is How to Sell a Haunted House, and here is the synopsis. Let me get my my readers on here. When their parents die at the tail end of the coronavirus pandemic, Lewis and Mark Joyner are devastated, but nothing can prepare them for how bad things are about to get. The two siblings are almost totally estranged and couldn't be more different. Now, however, they don't have a choice but to get along. The virus has passed, and both of them are facing bank accounts ravaged by the economic meltdown. Their one asset, their childhood home. They need to get it on the market as soon as possible because they need the money. Yet before their parents died, they taped newspaper over the mirrors and nailed shut the attic door. Sometimes we feel like puppets controlled by our upbringing and our genes. Sometimes we feel like our parents treat us like toys or playthings or even dolls. The past can ground us, teach us, and keep us safe. It can also trap us and bind us and suffocate the life out of us. As disturbing events stack up in the house, Louise and Mark have to learn that sometimes the only way to break away from the past, sometimes the only way to sell a haunted house, is to burn it all down. Now, as you see on the cover there looks like there might be some fire in that doorway. I don't know if that's like a spoiler. It kind of looks like a spoiler. I kind of hope not, but maybe it's just something that's going to be obvious from the very beginning. I don't know. Moving on. I'm really looking forward to this one as some science fiction horror, and that's The Scourge Between Stars by Ness Brown. I read at the beginning of 2022 this year. Excuse me, I read a book called Ship of Fools, which is about a spaceship going through space, missionaries. This one might make the top 10 list as well. I really enjoyed it, and it's basically some science fiction horror, space opera type horror, and I definitely want to get more into that. So let me get into the synopsis here of The Scourge Between Stars. As acting captain of the starship Calypso, Jacqueline Albright is responsible for keeping the last of humanity alive as they limp back to Earth from their forebears' failed colony on a distant planet. Faced with constant threats of starvation and destruction in the treacherous minefield of interstellar space, Jacqueline's crew has reached their breaking point. As unrest begins to spread throughout the ship's wards, a new threat emerges, picking off crew members in grim, bloody fashion. Jacqueline and her team must hunt down the ship's unknown intruder if they have any hope of making it back to their solar system alive. So I really like the idea of them failing at colonizing other planets and coming back, and obviously there's something on board that's killing them. That sounds kind of terrifying, especially if it's like, if they think, or even if they are, you know, the last humans alive. That brings about a certain type of dread that you can't escape from. All right, next up I have Gothic by Philip Fracassi. Philip Fracassi is one of my favorite writers. I've only read the longest piece I've read from him are novella lengths, and this is a novel. I'm pretty sure it's a full-length novel. I might be wrong on that, but I really enjoy Philip Fracassi. It'll be interesting to read something a little bit longer by him if this is indeed a novel. So let's get into the synopsis here. On his 59th birthday, Tyson Parks, a famous but struggling horror writer, receives an antique desk from his partner, Sarah, in the hopes it will rekindle his creative juices. Perhaps inspire him to write another best-selling novel and prove his best years aren't behind him. A continent away, a mysterious woman makes inquiries with her sources around the world, seeking the whereabouts of a certain artifact her family has been hunting for centuries. With the help of a New York private detective, she finally finds what she's been looking for. It's in the home of Tyson Parks. Meanwhile, as Tyson begins to use his new desk, he begins acting strange, violent, his writing more disturbing than anything he's written before. But publishers are paying top dollar, convinced his new work will be a hit, and Tyson will do whatever it takes to protect his newfound success, even if it means the destruction of the ones he loves, even if it means his own sanity. So that sounds really, really, really awesome. I can't wait to to get back into reading some Philip Fracassi. Okay, next up we have a sequel. A horror sequel at that, and that's Don't Fear the Reaper by Stephen Graham Jones. This is the sequel to My Heart is a Chainsaw, and so the very short synopsis I have here for it is December the 12th, 2019, Jade returns to the rural lake town of Proof Rock the same day as convicted indigenous serial killer Dark Mill South escapes into town to complete his revenge killings in this riveting sequel to My Heart is a Chainsaw from Stephen Graham Jones. So that's definitely at the top of my want to read. Can't wait for that. The next, or the last couple here I want to mention will be new reads for me, but as I was researching the books for this, these books seemed the more interesting than a lot of the other ones, and so they made the list of these top books I want to get to this year. So next up is The Haunting of Alejandra by V. Castro. I have yet to read anything by V. Castro, but I've heard so many good things about her previous works. So let's see what the synopsis says about this one. Alejandra no longer knows who she is. To her husband, she is a wife, and to her children, a mother. To her own adoptive mother, she's a daughter, but they cannot see who Alejandra has become, a woman struggling with darkness that threatens to consume her. Nor can they see what Alejandra sees. In times of despair, a ghostly vision appears to her, the apparition of a crying woman in ragged white gown. While Alejandra visits a therapist, she begins exploring her family's history, starting with the biological mother she never knew. As she goes deeper into the lives of the women in her family, she learns that heartbreak and tragedy are not the only things she has in common with her ancestors, because the crying woman was with them too. She is La Llorona, the vengeful and murderous mother of Mexican legend, and she will not leave until Alejandra follows her mother, her grandmother, and all the women who came before her into the darkness. But Alejandra has inherited more than just pain. She has inherited the strength and the courage of her foremothers, and she will have to summon everything they have given her to banish La Llorona forever. So that sounds really awesome. I really like the idea of going into some Mexican folklore and just running with it. Next up is Now, I may have pronounced Alejandra's name wrong. I'm not sure. I was just going by the J sometimes having an H sound in Spanish names, and I hope I'm correct with that, but I might butcher this next title. And it's Meve Fly, I believe it's called, by C.J. Lead. So here's the synopsis for this, and this cover, man, this cover is just absolutely crazy. And this is the cover is what drew me to this, and to me it just seems like it might be a very fun and fascinating read. So let's get into what the synopsis is. By day, Meve Fly works for the happiest place in the world as every child's favorite ice princess. By the neon night glow of the Sunset Strip, Maeve haunts the dive bars with a drink in one hand and a book in the other, imitating her misanthropic literary heroes. But when Gideon Green, her best friend's brother, moves to town, he awakens something dangerous within her, and the world she knows suddenly shifts beneath her feet. Untethered, Maeve ditches her discontented act and tries on a new persona, a bolder, bloodier one, inspired by the pages of American Psycho. Step inside Patrick Bateman. It's Maeve's turn with the knife. So that sounds like a sort of like losing your mind type story. It might be a lot of psychological games going on in there. Is it her? Is she crazy, or is there something else happening? And I absolutely love those types of stories. All right, last but certainly not least, I have Looking Glass Sound by Catriona Ward. Now, Catriona Ward has been making a lot of waves in the horror scene lately. Her last novel, I believe, is Sundial, and a lot of people are just talking about it. And I want to check this. I want to check out all her work, but I want to maybe start with this one. And so let's see what the synopsis is. Looking Glass Sound is the newest twisty psychological horror novel from Catriona Ward, the internationally best-selling author of The Last House on Needless Street and Sundial. In a lonely cottage overlooking the windswept Maine coast, glasses aren't working anymore, Wilder Harrow begins the last book he will ever write. It is the story of his childhood, summer companions, and the killer that stalked the small New England town, of the body they found, of the horror of that discovery echoing down the decades, and of Skye, Wilder's one-time best friend, who stole his unfinished memoir and turned it into a lurid best-selling novel, Looking Glass Sound. But as Wilder writes, the lines between memory and fiction blur. He fears he's losing his grip on reality when he finds notes hidden around the cottage, written in Skye's signature green ink. Catriona Ward delivers another mind-bending and cleverly crafted tale about one man's struggle to come to terms with the terrors of his past before it's too late. So that sounds like a lot of fun too. There's a couple of more psychological horrors on this, and I tend to go more for the supernatural horror, or if not complete monster horror. But that sounds like a lot of fun. These two books that I mentioned, also they're two authors I've been wanting to read for a long time, and so let's do it. Also, I'm not a huge new book reader, as you may have noticed or paid attention if you were watching my channel at all during this year. I only read maybe 2 or 3 recent releases, or books that were released in 2022, and so I'm hoping to maybe do better in regards to that in 2023. But there's so many books, as you as a reader, I'm sure, can understand that there's so many books you want to read, and 99.99% of all books are backlist books published before your current year. So let's see what happens. This isn't a TBR. This is just books I hope to read when they come out, or at least soon as they come, or not as soon as they come out, but soon after their release. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you made it all the way to the end here, it's not a long video by any means, but if you want, just leave a stack of books, the emoticon, and I will leave you a stack of books in return. Thanks for watching. Keep being safe and keep being creative, and I'll catch you guys in the next bookish video.